There's good news and bad news. The good news, Ford bounced back, actually outran Hendrick Motorsports today. The bad news is that Hendrick Motorsports still won the race. How's it going, y'all? My name is Eric. Welcome to Out of the Groove, Phoenix Race Recap Edition. And oh man, there is a lot to digest after this one. It's typical NASCAR. A race defined by long runs comes down to a couple late race restarts and varying pit strategy. We'll talk about the winner, the top finishers, the late race reshuffling of the leaderboard. But first, let's talk Kevin Harvick, my personal driver of the day, if NASCAR had such an award. I know he's not winning 8 races like he did in 2018 or 9 races like he did in 2020, but Kevin Harvick, the oldest full-time driver in the NASCAR Cup Series, driving for a struggling Stewart-Haas Racing, continues to impress me week after week after week. 2 laps into this race, I thought it was over. I thought William Byron or Kyle Larson was going to lead every single lap. They weren't going to be challenged all day. I was expecting a repeat of Las Vegas last weekend. But then, towards the end of stage 1, I noticed Kevin Harvick, who started this race back in like 15th, not very impressive, but he was one of the few drivers who at the end of the long run was still making moves up inside the top 10. I honed in on his radio, his lap times, the rest of the race, because I believed that if he got up to second or third, if he got that track position, on the long run, he would be able to challenge the 2 Hendrick Chevys. And so the rest of the day, it was Kevin Harvick, the Resistance, trying to take down the empire that is Hendrick Motorsports. Chipping away, slowly but surely, run after run, getting closer and closer, until the final long run of the race. Harvick's team gets him out right behind Larson after green flag pit stops, hunts him down, and eventually makes the pass. To me, that was David beating Goliath. That was the Resistance destroying the Hendrick Death Star. I know I'm making this sound dramatic, but you heard it in Clint Boyer's voice on the Fox broadcast. He interrupted the poorly timed Crank It Up segment to voice his surprise. He was shocked that Kevin Harvick was able to just pass a Hendrick Motorsports Chevy for the race lead. Nobody had shown that kind of strength all day. It was a moment that the previous 250 laps had slowly been building up towards if you'd been paying attention. It was great. As a fan who'd latched himself onto Harvick early on, it was rewarding. It was fulfilling. Kevin Harvick was in position to win his 10th Phoenix race, his 20th straight top 10 finish, break the streak of Chevy winners to start this season, and then a caution came out for Harrison Burton. I don't know what the hell Harrison Burton is doing. He's in like last place, spinning out with 6 laps to go. I don't know what he's doing. Gosh, the fall from grace for the Wood brothers, sad to see. To their credit, the Hendrick cars took the risk. They took 2 tires, they came out ahead. Kevin Harvick with 4 tires back in traffic. At least he was on the offensive, but he just didn't have enough fire-off speed to really contend. He got beat by Tyler Reddick on the first restart, and then once again kind of got shuffled in the middle on the second restart. He got back up to 5th, a top 5 finish, still great, extends that top 10 streak. But the trophy, a valuable, valuable win in Harvick's final season at his best track, was within grasp until that final caution. Kevin Harvick did everything right today except maybe that second to last restart. Maybe could have got a better jump, wouldn't have let Reddick get to his inside and hang him out in the middle. But before that final restart, Kevin Harvick, Rodney Childers put together a beautiful race. I don't think anyone watching at home expected a Ford to challenge the 2 dominant Hendrick Chevrolets, but Kevin Harvick, they worked on their car all day long. They slowly but surely chipped away at the Empire's lead, and for a brief moment, they had Hendrick Motorsports on the brink. Just didn't work out. So Kevin Harvick, I want to open the show up by talking about him because what he is doing with a struggling Stewart-Haas Racing team is almost as impressive as when he was winning all those races with a good SHR team a few years ago. Just continues to highlight the hole, the vacuum that Stewart-Haas Racing is going to have to desperately try and fill when Harvick retires after this season. All right, I know I opened it up with Kevin Harvick. We should probably talk about the race winner. I don't want to disrespect William Byron, but he kind of swooped in and stole this one. Similar story to last week, not quite the same. Last week he dominated at Las Vegas, then fell behind his teammate, took advantage of a late race yellow to beat Kyle Larson. This week, I mean, Byron did lead a lot of laps, but it was actually Kyle Larson who led the most. It was also Kyle Larson who was the control car, was the leader on the final restart, but William Byron just sailed that 24 car off into turns 1 and 2, and it stuck. Larson washed up the track, almost pinched Byron into the wall, but Byron's car did not lose grip, did not lose momentum, and even going into turns 3 and 4, Byron gets a huge push from Tyler Reddick right before turn 3 entry. I thought he was going to wash up the track, but no, that car stuck planted in that second lane. The car was set up perfectly for 2 tires for a short run, and William Byron drove it to perfection. Byron, of course, was top 2 most of the day, top 5 all day long, so I'm not saying he's not a deserving winner, but he did kind of swoop in and steal this. I think when Kyle Larson came out with the lead on 2 tires with 5 cars behind him also with 2 tires, I think we all expected Larson to hang on. He'd been really good on the short runs, he'd led the most laps, but William Byron on that final overtime restart pulled it off. So congrats to him. That's 2 wins in a row for Willie B. What a start to the 2023 season. This is starting to look like the year William Byron finally pops. Fans have been waiting for this moment for a long time. He won a couple races last year, but then had that summer-long slump. Hopefully they avoid that this season, but right now, Hendrick Motorsports looks like the best team. William Byron and Rudy Fugle have done a fantastic job executing the past 2 weeks. Sky's the limit for William Byron and that 24 car. I thought that stat they said at the end of the broadcast was surprising. This is the first time the 24 car has gone back-to-back in Cup since Jeff Gordon in 2007. I know he had a great year in 2007, but I guess I thought Gordon would have pulled it off sometime since then. Then I remember Chase Elliott didn't win any races in the 24. He didn't win until he got over to the 9. So I guess this is the first time in 16 years almost that the 24 has repeated. But Hendrick Motorsports 2 wins in a row. Chevrolet, I mentioned it, 4 straight wins to open the season. What a start for them. Of course, we'll talk about later this week whether any penalties come from the hood louvers being confiscated. If you missed my video this morning, earlier this weekend, all 4 Hendrick Chevys had their hood vents, their hood louvers confiscated by NASCAR. They're going back to the R&D center. Any potential penalties will be announced Tuesday or Wednesday, most likely. We don't know what NASCAR saw, what the problem with those parts may be, but if Hendrick did modify a single source part without NASCAR's approval, then we could see all 4 Hendrick teams face significant penalties here in a couple days, but we'll have to wait and see. No matter what happens this week, this win for William Byron will make the team feel a whole lot better. Let's take a look at some of the top finishers. All 4 Hendrick Motorsports Chevys end up finishing inside the top 10. Alex Bowman squeaks into the top 10, and Josh Berry, making just his second start, driving the number 9, filling in for Chase Elliott, comes home 10th. Another race with a couple late race restarts, so this finishing order is a little jumbled up. Alex Bowman ran outside the top 10 most of today, which was a little surprising considering how good his teammates were. And Josh Berry, he worked his way up into the top 15 towards the end of stage 3, but it was 4 tires on that final restart, and a good restart that got him a top 10. I'm not hating, I'm just contextualizing. Really great run for Josh Berry, and all things considered, I know Phoenix has not been one of Bowman's best tracks, at least not since he was filling in for Dale Jr. in 2016. A top 10 is a solid result. I believe this is Ryan Blaney's 4th straight top 5 finish at Phoenix. He was my pick to win, almost got it done. Another example Kyle Petty can use in his argument. Blaney, really close, but not quite able to get over that hump. Still the best running Penske car, and we saw Joey Logano struggle for the vast majority of this race. He fell off the lead lap early on. Austin Cindric was never relevant. So all things considered, I think Ryan Blaney finishing second is actually a really good run. Tyler Reddick, the best finishing car on 4 tires there at the end. He did exactly what Kevin Harvick needed to do on the second to last restart. Harvick restarted inside row 4. Reddick was behind him inside row 5. Harvick needed to go all the way down as far below the apron as possible, roll 1 and 2. Reddick got a better jump than him, was able to hang Harvick into the middle, and Reddick was able to roll the bottom and make up like 5 spots in the first set of turns. That set him up for a solid top 5 finish. Reddick ran top 5, top 6 most of today. Probably his best race, no, easily his best race this season since joining 2311. Kyle Larson led the most laps today, but has to settle for 4th. We already talked about Kevin Harvick finishing 5th. Really good day for Christopher Bell. He was up inside the top 5 almost all day. Chase Briscoe won this race a year ago. He needed a big day after struggling the past 2 weeks. That team just has not had good speed. Today they struggled a bit early on. We're running back around 20th, but around midway through this race, they flipped a switch and Briscoe began moving his way forward. He almost looked as good as his teammate Kevin Harvick there towards the end, so he gets a top 10 finish. Happy for Briscoe. Oh no, not again. What happened to Brad Keselowski? He was top 10 all day long, once again. In fact, he was top 5 for most of this race. Brad Keselowski, RFK, where did he finish? 18th? Oh, I'll have to go back and rewatch the restarts again. What happened? Was it just bad restarts, wrong lane, shuffled out of line? Man, RFK looked so good today. Chris Buescher was up inside the top 10 for a lot of this race as well. RFK, man, they're so close to making a huge jump, taking a huge step forward. I really wanted Brad Keselowski to get the top 10 he deserved. I thought he deserved one at Vegas last week. I think he finished like 17th or 18th. Same thing here. Man, just gotta finish one of these races. It looked like Brad was having fun out there, though. I really liked seeing Keselowski once again in contention. Two drivers who ran top 10 all day who you won't see here are Denny Hamlin and Ross Chastain. They finished 23rd and 24th after Denny Hamlin just never made the corner on the final restart, just drifted up into Ross Chastain. They both went into the wall, lost a ton of positions. Hamlin and Chastain are connected and they have no issue finding each other on a weekly basis. Not too many other notes. Bad day for the rookies. Gragson, I think, had a speeding penalty. I know Ty Gibbs did. Both finished well outside the top 25. Eric Almirola, I'm not exactly sure what happened to him. He was the first caution for incident today when the right rear wheel, the hub, just broke or something. Fell off the car, hit the wall. I think he broke a rear toe link. NASCAR penalized the team as if it was a loose wheel, like a loose lug nut. I'm not sure if that's actually what happened. It almost just looked like some pieces under the car broke. I have no idea if that was the result of a loose lug nut or not, but that's how NASCAR saw it. Either way, it ended Almirola's day. Those are your top finishers, though, from today's race at Phoenix. Oh shoot, I lied. I wanted to mention Martin Truex Jr. What was wrong with his car? I haven't gone back and looked. Like, Martin Truex Jr. fans who were keeping up with his radio communications, why were they so bad? Denny Hamlin, Christopher Bell were top 5 all day. Why was Truex like 18th? That was surprising to me. Let me know down in the comment section below. And Daniel Suarez, been really good to start this year. They've had a ton of speed. They've gotten some good finishes, but I've documented on the show, drivers made a lot of mistakes. He came back from a speeding penalty at Auto Club, right, to finish top 5. Had a speeding penalty, actually 2 speeding penalties late today, and finishes outside the top 20. He probably had a top 12, maybe top 15 run going, so, not the worst mistake in the world. It's not like he was in position for the win or anything, but certainly disappointing. Gotta clean those up. Speaking of speeding penalties, I forgot to mention Kyle Busch. He both sped and had an uncontrolled tire penalty on the same stop, was outside the top 20, drove all the way back up to 8th, so I do want to give Kyle Busch a shout out for that. Was Gragson caught speeding? I know he had some speeding issues at, I think, Las Vegas last week. No, he was just caught up in that wreck with Allmendinger and Ty Gibbs, I think. So I think that's why Noah Gragson was back there. My bad, not a speeding penalty. Correction. I think that covers all my notes. I thought it was really interesting when Kevin Harvick passed Kyle Larson with 30, 40 laps to go. Cliff Daniels came over Larson's radio and sounded mad, sounded like a disapproving father. Why did we run high in 3 and 4? We shouldn't have done that. Let's get back to the bottom in 3 and 4. He has that deep kind of authoritative voice. And he did not seem too happy with some of Kyle Larson's decisions during that run. I think it's pretty clear as the run went on that Larson's car just didn't have what it once had. Harvick was just better. But for a few moments there, Cliff Daniels did not sound too happy with the team's execution. This is 2 races in a row, technically, where Kyle Larson appeared to be in control of the race and some sort of late race circumstances snatched the win out from underneath him. He was the control car for that final restart and got beat by his teammate William Byron fair and square. On one hand, it's great that Larson team clearly have a ton of speed, but on the other, they got to close one of these out at some point. Remember, he was also up front at Daytona in the 500 in the closing laps and got caught up in that last lap crash. So a lot of close calls for Larson to start this year, but no trophies yet. That's got to be disappointing. Real quick, I want to talk about the broadcast. Last week I mentioned that Danica Patrick sounded really uncomfortable the first half, like she was really trying to find a rhythm. And then by the end of last week's race, I thought she was a very solid addition to the booth. I really enjoyed Danica Patrick this week. This was her best race yet. I even thought Clint Bowyer was decent. I appreciate Clint Bowyer breaking out of the Crank It Up segment to talk about the pass for the lead. I had some gripes with the direction of this race, like why was there a Crank It Up segment with 40 laps to go when you could see Harvick catching Larson for the lead? I thought the commercial interruptions were not too bad considering this was a race on Big Fox, not on cable where it's partially funded by cable subscriptions. Commercials were not too bad. I wasn't a fan of Mike Joy calling out the keyboard warriors before going to the final green flag full screen commercial break. He's done this a couple weeks in a row now. I understand. Mike Joy sees the criticism. Clearly Fox has seen the criticism on social media, but I don't know. I think calling out part of your audience who, in my opinion, have had justifiable complaints in recent weeks, that's not a good look. It made me cringe more than anything. And it sucks because Mike Joy isn't really the problem at Fox. I don't think he's quite as sharp, as quick as he once was, but I would consider him a positive part of the broadcast. Fans are not really upset with Mike Joy. It's everything else. Occasionally it's Clint Bowyer. Tony Stewart was not a fan of him in the booth personally. More than anything, it's the producers, it's the direction, it's the folks in the truck, it's the guys in suits. That too I think fans really have issue with over at Fox right now. It's not Mike Joy. So to hear Mike Joy, I don't know, kind of come off as a little hostile there. I didn't think it was as exciting or funny as other people did. That's just me, I guess. But I thought the broadcast was okay. This was probably my favorite Fox broadcast I've seen so far this year, which isn't saying a whole lot, but positive steps. It's going the right direction. As for Phoenix Raceway, the new aero package, 30% lower downforce. This is the least downforce these cars have had since the 90s. It seemed better than what we had last year. Keep in mind, I haven't watched a Phoenix race on TV in like 2 years. So watching this race on TV may distort my perspective a bit, but the cars definitely seemed less stable. There was more tire fall off. There were 2 or 3 different lanes you could pick from on both ends of the racetrack, I thought. But ultimately it was still really tough to pass. There was good cars, good drivers that could just drive away, it seemed. Dirty Air certainly had a role. It wasn't amazing by any means, but it certainly wasn't worse. I would not say this package was worse than what we had last year. It was probably slightly better. I'm not sure what direction NASCAR needs to go towards, if they're going to test groove tires like Denny Hamlin suggested a few weeks back. Be curious to see how that changes the product at tracks like Phoenix. I'm not smart enough to know exactly what should be tried next, what needs to change. I felt like today's racing was okay, could probably be a little bit better, but Phoenix Raceway, being a flat track the way it is, just naturally has some limitations, I think. Great to see a sellout crowd, some sun finally on this West Coast swing. That was pretty cool. Let's put this race on the groovy gauge. I'm actually gonna give this one a 70%, slightly higher than Vegas last week. I know some of y'all are probably rolling your eyes. Yes, early on, Kyle Larson, William Byron were driving away from the field. The lead was never in question. This was the kind of race that required the audience's full attention. And this is the kind of race where you really need a second screen. You need your laptop or your phone. You need to be able to check the leaderboard and follow different lap times, lap after lap. Listen to the radio broadcast. Because like I said, I was tracking Kevin Harvick basically from lap 40 to the end, and seeing how his lap times would compare to Larson, to Byron's, depending on where they were at in the run, where they were as far as track position, was actually really interesting. But that's the kind of race this was. You had to be hunched over your laptop, studying the numbers while watching the broadcast, and that's not going to appeal to everybody. I get that. If you're just watching this race at the local Buffalo Wild Wings with the boys, it probably wasn't the most entertaining, at least not until the end. So I understand that the scores are probably going to be all over the place for you guys down in the comment section below, but from my perspective, where I was sitting, I enjoyed this race. 70% for me. What do you think? What would you give this race on your own personal groovy gauge? I think that's gonna do it. Covered a lot. I think I covered everything I wanted to, but let me know what you thought of today's United Rentals, Work Rentals United 500, whatever the heck it was called, at Phoenix Raceway. I wanna hear your opinions. That'll do it for this episode. If you're new to the channel and you love NASCAR, be sure to hit that subscribe button so you stay in the loop and you don't miss any upcoming content. And as always, a big thank you to my Patreon supporters for continuing to support this show each and every month. Hope y'all have a wonderful rest of your weekend. I will see you again later this week. Take it easy, y'all.